Hello my friends and welcome to Flying Circus Models. Here's another video from Canadian Aviation and Space Museum, a close look-up of their AEG G.IV bomber. From what I know, this plane is the only one real World War I aircraft, not a replica. It has the serial number 574/18 and was brought to Canada in 1919 as a war trophy. It has been at the museum since 1970. AEG is less famous than the Gotha G4, the 520 horsepower AEG G4 Allgemeine Elektrizitätsgesellschaft Großflugzeug 4. Sorry for my German, I'm sure I pronounced it wrong. So this is a tactical and strategic bomber, was nevertheless able to carry a heavier bomb load and was considered to be the easiest to fly all of the German First World War bombers. Twin-engine German bombers like the AEG G.IV evolved from an early concept that heavily armed twin-engine Kampfflugzeug or battle planes were the way to fight in the air. As a result of this idea, they sold 200 horsepower AEG K1, later redesigned to G1, in 1915, 300 horsepower AEG G2, and to a lesser extent the 440 horsepower G3 were primarily used as a heavily armed escort for two-seat reconnaissance and bombing aircraft from late 1915. In mid-1916, a report came out that concluded correctly that lighter, more agile single-seat fighters were better suited to this task, and the role of the G-type aircraft was fully transitioned to that of bombing. The prototype AEG G.IV rolled out in September 1916, followed by the first production machines in January 1917. But it wasn't until after the middle of 1917 that they were able to frontline units in significant numbers. Initially employed for daylight tactical and strategic bombing, this was changed to night operations following substantial losses due to enemy action. Similar to its AEG predecessors, the G.IV featured a sturdy welded steel tube frame fuselage, tailplane, and certain parts of the wings, and proved popular with its crew. All struts and wing spars were also made from steel tubes. The nose was covered by molded plywood, with the rest of the fuselage, tailplane and wings covered with fabric. The crew of three consisted of a rear gunner, pilot and commander. A foldaway seat was positioned to the right of the pilot for the commander to sit in during takeoff and landing to prevent him being crushed in the almost inevitable nose-over accident. Up to 3 parabellum machine guns could be carried, with one positioned in the commander's console or pulpit, and 2 for the rear gunner, one of which was fitted to the floor and fired through a tap door in the bottom of the fuselage. On night operations, the crew was frequently reduced to 2 people, with the rear gunner's position only fitted with a single gun firing through the bottom of the fuselage. 2 260 horsepower Daimler-Benz D4A engines were positioned in nacelles between each wing, which enabled the AEG G.IV to lift upwards of 800 kilos of bombing, which were carried both internally and externally. By comparison, the similarly powered long-range Gotha G4 had a maximum bomb load of only 600 kilos. An early variation of the AEG G4 was the G4B, which had extended 3-bay wings with additional ailerons on the bottom wings, which was intended to carry a 1,000 kilo bomb. The later G4B length featured an extended fuselage, biplane tailplane, and 2 300 horsepower engines, which formed the basis for the AEG G.V that went into production in August 1918. Another development was the G4K, armed with 20mm Becker cannons for attacking ground targets, which featured armored crew positions and engine nacelles. Only 5 G4K were produced and none are thought to seen in active service. Early production AEG G.IV had their rear internal bomb racks paired on the port side of the fuselage in the rear gunner's cockpit, while later machines had one mounted on each side of the fuselage. Early aircraft had their parabellum machine gun mounts roll-along fails fixed around the cockpit openings, while later aircraft were fitted with rotating gun rings. Very early G4 had smaller rounded rudders, which proved to be ineffective and were replaced by a larger, more triangular version shortly after they entered service. Like many other night-operated aircraft, the AEG G.IV suffered from a very high attrition rate due to landing accidents, and production could never quite keep up with the demand for replacement aircraft. It's a very interesting machine in my opinion, and I have an early model on my shelf that I will build next year perhaps. When I was filming this video, I was accompanied by a museum staff, and she told me not to touch the plane. I don't even mention about getting into a cockpit. However, she told me a very interesting fact that before pandemic, museum used to have a special activity, and visitors were able to stay overnight for a sleepover between planes, and they made some kind of light show. So during the show, the Lausanne camouflage on that aircraft had completely different view, not like during the daylight. But they stopped doing this in 2020 when COVID started, and she doesn't know about the plans of doing it again. I would like to stay overnight and experience it if I had a chance. And what about you? Would you stay? Let me know in the comments. By the way, if you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel, press like button, ring the bell in order not to miss a new video. Also, if you would like to support my channel, you can do it on Patreon, where you can see my videos early. Also, I share some interesting pictures there. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching and see you in the next episodes.